Okay, screens. Okay, just under a minute. It's 12:15 now. I'm going to get started. Thank you, everybody who's on the line for joining us today. This session is going to be recorded. So if anyone joins in late, they can always watch the recording, or if you have a friend or colleague that might want to get the information, they can always check our website and get the information a little bit later after the session. So I'm going to get started, and I will remind everybody who's listening that you can claim this as self-directed education for your CE portfolio. So just kind of note down the date in your portfolio and what this was about and the time spent watching, and you can count that as your self-directed education. There are other sessions that are going to be coming up in the following weeks about the new registration regulation. So there's going to be one on currency hours that's coming up, I think, the week after. And then there'll be a seminar or webinar about the inactive class. So each of those will be lunch and learn sessions like this one. So those ones are actually going to be accredited. They'll probably be accredited for a half hour of PG. So there would be accreditation committee right now. And we will post the accreditation number shortly. So let's get started. I'll just start with the land acknowledgement. This is based on where the college is located. So the College of Opticians of Ontario operates on the traditional lands of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. The college acknowledges and respects that these lands are now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people who continue to experience the impact of colonization. The college also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. With the utmost respect and humility, we at the college are grateful to live and work on these lands and are committed to educating ourselves in areas of cultural safety and humility in the delivery of equitable healthcare in Ontario. So just a bit of an overview of today's session. We'll sort of briefly speak about what the college's function is, what does the board do, and then talk a little bit about board member competencies and characteristics. We've got our panel, which I'll introduce in a moment, and we'll talk about a little bit about what they perceived as possibly benefits of involvement. We'll go over the overview of the elections process, and we'll talk a little bit about this new pre-election screening interview that we've been doing for the past, I would say, 3 or 4 years. So my name is Fazal Khan. I'm the registrar here, and I'm also an optician. On my screen, I'm not sure if you're viewing it in the same order, but to my left is Ms. Carolyn Robertson, who's the manager of communications and executive office. She'll be your point of contact for pretty much all things elections. So if there's ever any questions, you can reach out to Carolyn. I've got board member Tanya Namabian with me. She's also an optician, an elected member, and I've got Mr. Samir Modera, also an optician and elected member. Maybe I'll actually just for a moment turn it over to Tanya and Samir to say a little bit about themselves as far as their background and what they do in their real life when they're not being a board member. So maybe Tanya, I'll start with you.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Tanya Namabian. I'm a registered optician. I've been a licensed optician for about 7 years, but worked in the optical field for about 18 years. In my full-time gig, I work in a small optometry office in St. Thomas, and I manage their contact lens practice, but I've also worked for some big box companies, Labaz and Hakim. I've been with the board. This is my 4th year. I'm currently an elected member, but previously was an appointed member. And when I'm not at work or doing work with the college, I enjoy spending time with my family. I have 3 little kids and my spouse, Jesse, and 2 dogs.
You got a handful there. And Samir?
Thank you, Tanya, for a great introduction, definitely. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samir. I am a registered optician at the College of Opticians of Ontario. Licensed from 2008, 20 years of an experience within the industry. Been serving a board for about 5 years now. Beside being a board member, I'm also a business center manager at the Walmart location of Orangeville. And same like what Tanya said, it my family basically consists of my little one. He's 9 years old, and my wife Shanam, she's definitely a great hand to me throughout my career. Thank you.
Thanks, Samir. Okay, so let's kick off our session. So a little bit about the college's function. So let's maybe start with kind of comparing and contrasting ourselves with the association, because a lot of times people are really fired up about certain issues that are affecting them or are dear to them, and often join the college to sort of champion those causes. But sometimes those causes are more of an association sort of scope. Um, the college is basically founded like the other 26 health regulatory colleges as an organization to regulate their profession or self-regulate. So self-regulation is a privilege. It allows the profession to set its own rules and guidelines, but they've always got to keep in mind that they've got to be in the public's interest. So looking at the table that's in front of you, the college has a public interest in mandate, whereas the association is set up to promote the members' interests. So if there's something that's concerning you about working conditions or pay or things like that, that's more of an association thing, and not really a college mandate. Now, to practice opticianry in Ontario, it's mandatory that you are registered with the college, just like all the other health professions. With the association, that's voluntary. It's up to you if you want to join, but they are considered sort of your voice. The college is a registration system. The association, they call it membership, and it has its privileges, often like the credit card commercials. Joining the association, you've got benefits such as continuing education, insurance, discounts on certain services. Whereas with the college, your fee is really a registration fee to register you in good standing with the college. And it's sort of a mandatory thing. I know a lot of people get frustrated that they pay us $1,000 and don't feel that we do enough for them, but really the function of your registration dues is to operate the college so that we can set those entry to practice requirements and all those fun things, set up programs of quality assurance, and then the complaints process. So just like any other profession, registration dues go to pretty much the same functions that every other college has. The college's function is all about accountability of its registrants to make sure that they are practicing to the level that they're supposed to. The association is about advocacy, and so they, as I said, they are your voice. You will, if you've got a cause, bring it to their attention, and they might get behind it. Then they'll typically get in front of government and lobby them. So definitely lobbying is not really in the scope of the college's functions. So as far as, what does the board and its directors do? As a board member, you are part of setting the strategic direction for the college. And so the college board members typically sit down once every 3 years and set a game plan for the next 3 years as to where they want to see the college move towards. They do this based on gathering information. Typically, the administration gathers information about what's happening in the profession, what's happening in regulatory, and what's happening amongst the public. And the board then sort of discusses this, looks at all the different data, and sort of comes up with a strategic plan. Again, as I said, the focus is public, and there's requirements, fiduciary duties. As a board member, you're expected to be prepared to show up and participate, having read all your materials. There's accountability. You're expected to conduct yourself in a certain way that is transparent and ethical, because you are essentially not representing the membership. You're representing the public interest, and there's an expectation of loyalty and confidentiality, especially when you're working on committees. There's sometimes you're on complaints, and you're looking at a lot of information about your fellow peers. sometimes allegations and things that haven't been proven or not, but there's an expectation not to speak about those outside of the four walls of the process. Disclosing conflicts of interest. It's really important to the integrity of the college that you're forthright, you're examining and you're looking at the topic that we're talking about and analyzing whether you might have a conflict of interest and whether it's appropriate for you to participate in that conversation. For instance, if you've got a financial interest in a third-party company that might benefit from a contract or a direction that the college is going, it's important to put that out there and set yourself aside so that you're not using your position on the board to further your personal interests. Risk management is very important, right down to things like, possible breaches of confidentiality data. So you're expected to sort of work in a space that's private. You're not having other people overhear you. Your computer, for instance, that you're using is secured with a password. There's no chance of files being missent or anything, or information that's private to you being seen by anybody else. Committee work. As a board member, you're put on a few committees. So committees include registration, quality assurance, complaints, governance, and you'll again work with a smaller group of members to develop new policies. And we're doing a lot of policy development this year, all around the new registration regulation. So what's involved? Typically, attending meetings now is done mainly via Zoom. So, ever since the pandemic, we've made the pivot towards Zoom. It's actually, we've gotten a lot of good feedback about it because it helps you not have to take off from work as much or leave your family, that type of thing. Typically, board meetings, we call them 4 to 6 meeting days. So there's about 4 or quarterly board meetings scheduled throughout the year. They typically are a day and a half, sometimes 2 days. So we have a board meeting in March, one in June, typically one in September, October, and one in December. So as a board member, you're going to be involved definitely at those board meetings. Then there's committee meetings, and depending on how many committees that you're placed on, typically you'll be placed on at least 1, maybe 2 committees. You might end up doing about 7 to 15 days a year in committee meetings. The other thing is also we do a lot of training, trying to prepare you for your role, as well as things. For instance, we do diversity, equity, inclusion training. We do facilitation training. How to run a better meeting. These sessions typically occur 3 to 5 times throughout the year. So, total, you're probably looking at about 14 to 26 days out of the year. Sometimes they're half-day meetings. A lot of the committee meetings are typically half days. Usually they're scheduled in the mornings from about 9 till about 11 or 12. So, they're typically a little bit easier to sort of slot in there. Now, you'll probably have an expectation that you'll probably be reading about 1 to 3 hours of prep materials for your meetings. The board meetings are the bigger they are, the more there's reading. There's lots of briefing notes and stuff like that. So a 1.5, 2 day board meeting typically will take around 3 hours of reading. You'll typically have access to your materials a week in advance, so you don't have to read everything the night before. Committee meetings, again, you'll have your materials hopefully a week in advance. For a 3-hour meeting, you'll probably have about a half hour to an hour of reading as far as files and things. One thing I will, just going back to the time spent, you will be reimbursed for time spent, whether it's attendance or even prep. So we kind of go through all of that and explain how you can bill for your time. Meetings are held during regular business hours, so typically between 8:30 and 4:30. As I said, most of them are via Zoom. There are sometimes some in-person attendance required. So typically, we've been holding the June meeting in person. It's a good opportunity to meet fellow board members and appointed members. And so you'll be reimbursed for hotels and travel if you do come in. So board members who reside outside the GTA can expense their meals, travel, and accommodations. Um, and yeah, you're provided a per diem to cover all of these things. So if you're outside, there's also a travel per diem that's provided. So benefits of involvement, often there's a lot of personal development that happens here. There's a lot of training sessions. And, I've heard from, for instance, Netta, who's one of our past chairs. She said, for instance, that she developed a lot of her public speaking skills and confidence participating on the board. So we often poll the board and find out what type of training each year that they're interested in and try to get the right people to do that training. Often the skills that you develop here are transferable. So for instance, learning board governance and how those things operate. Some people get onto the boards of a condo or other organizations, charitable organizations. The process is the same. You'll learn the same governance skills and can take those outside. There's an opportunity to contribute to public safety. It's nice to be, I think, involved in where the profession is going. And as I said, there's compensation provided. So there's a few core competencies that are expected as from our board members that we are looking for in the screening session. So this is something that's relatively new. It's in the last 5 years, I would say this has been developed, and it's something that's happening amongst all the regulatory colleges where we're not looking for somebody to be the most popular to get on the board and win an election that way. We're looking for people who got certain skills and can contribute to moving the college and its policies forward. So for the first one, passion, that there's a passion to serve the public interest. Exemplary integrity. We're looking for people because at the end of the day, if your integrity comes into question, the college's integrity comes into question in all the decisions we make. So we are looking for somebody with a high level of integrity, unbiased and open-minded. This is really big. A lot of people, we have a lot of voices at the table, and at the end of the day, we're trying to create a safe space for all ideas to be shared. Often we have our own personal biases or things like that. It's really, really important to be able to not only express yourself, but listen and take in other points of view. Sometimes you're going to miss something from your point of view that somebody else might bring up, and hopefully you're not the type that has a position and you're going to go down with a ship, and that you're open-minded enough to look at the other perspective and maybe come to a better compromise. Because at the end of the day, we're always looking for something that covers all bases and is reflective of the group and of all positions. Critical judgment and decision making is an important skill, and part of the the ability to work with an open mind is to be able to collaborate and be inclusive. So those are the skill sets. A lot of times people stress out if they're a new optician that, oh, I don't know enough about opticianry. Really, it's not about your subject matter skills. It's more you're there in the position of looking at things, looking at briefing notes with information and saying, yeah, I think that is a comprehensive amount of information, and I can make a decision based on that. So I'll touch base a little bit on diversity, equity, inclusion. It's been a big piece of the college since 2020, where the move has been to ensure that the process to become a board or committee member is competency-based and barrier-free. We're trying to make sure that things like even language could become a barrier if English is not your first language. So we're really cognizant of how we ask questions and make sure that they're understandable and clear. We're not looking to trip anybody up. We're just trying to suss out that you've got those core competencies. We want to make sure that we have opportunities and resources for registrants with a diverse background to apply for the board and committee positions. And that's why events like this, where we're having an info session, are put on so that you really do know what's involved, and maybe that it's not as tall a mission as somebody might think. And we're trying to make sure that we have a DEI approach integrated to all our processes internally. So, as far as the elections process overview, I recommend that you read the nominations guide and the FAQs. If you're looking for that, Carolyn can, typically in all the mailers and things, we have a link to that, but you can reach out to Carolyn and she can specifically point you in the right direction. We have a pre-election training module, and again, you can avail yourself of that in the information package. Today, you still got time to gather your nominations package. You've got till the 24th of April. We close at noon. So, I would say if you're interested, start talking to people to nominate you and start thinking about creating a little bio about yourself. The pre-election screening interviews happen on Monday, May the 6th. So please, if you are serious about running, note that one down in your diary, put it in your calendar, because those who are go through the process of submitting their nominations package and everything's in order, we will reach out to you to book a time slot for that interview with the panel. Voting will open June 7th and close June 21st. It's all done through the registrant portal. So there's no paper ballots or anything like that. And as I said, if you need information, email elections@collegeofopticians.ca. Carolyn will be at the other end of that email address and we'll give you a hand. A little bit of the pre-election screening interview, it's about 40 to 60 minutes. The screening committee, just so that there's no bias, in case you feel that you might have had some run-ins with a fellow colleague or anything like that, there are no opticians on this panel. They're all public members, and they're basically looking at the 5 core competencies: passion, public service, integrity, unbiased, and open-mindedness, critical thinking, all of those topics that I talked about before. So they're really not judging you on your optical skills. More, how are you going to fit as a board member who's open to hearing other people's points of view, ready to discuss the issues and make decisions. So as I said, May 6th is that interview day. So I'll just talk a little bit more in detail about these core competencies. A passion for public service, trying to understand, like, you have to be able to demonstrate an understanding of initiative and commitments towards the practice of opticianry, and that you're committed to serving the college's mandate to regulate the profession. So there's a wealth of knowledge on our website in the About Us section and all of that. So read up a little bit more. At the same time, if you're, after this presentation, if you're still sort of wondering a bit about, exactly what we do, you're welcome to contact Carolyn and myself, and we can talk a little bit more about it. As I said, exemplified integrity, demonstrate a conviction to do what's right and reject what's wrong or what's in your personal interest, regardless of the consequences. For instance, if I was to use a condo board, if you were on a condo board and, you're a resident there and the roof is in need of repair, they may have to vote on raising the condo fees. Now, that'll be for the good of the condo, but it's going to cost you personally. So now you're deciding, do I look after my personal pocketbook or do I do what's right for the condo board? So, you often come into these kind of conflicts, and you've got to be able to put your personal interests aside and do what's right for the organization. Unbiased and open-mindedness, it's really important for your ability to sort of self-identify and set aside conscious and unconscious biases. A lot of bias, and we do bias training, so we can go into that more if you're on board. But you never know, sometimes you might have a bias based on your demographic, your upbringing, all of these things. So it's really important that you kind of reflect inwards. And as that's actually the second point, reflecting on the impact of your unconscious biases on the situation, and then the importance of actively listening. Rather than being in defense mode or sales mode, taking a beat, actively listening, truly listening to the other person's point of view, and reflecting if there is information missing from your decision process. Critical judgment and decision making. This is an important one. Making good decisions based on a combination of analysis, wisdom, experience, and sound judgment. A lot of people go by, I've got a gut feeling. But what we really need you to do is also look at the facts in front of you. We work really hard to get information. We call it environmental scanning, where we look at a number of resources. We look at what's happening in the patient space, in the professional space. We look at what's happening in other regulatory spaces, and bring a plethora of information. Um, we bring in experts. So, for instance, if we were to create a cutoff score for quality assurance, we typically have an expert that's there in this field, and they're giving us information. So it's really important that you take this information in and kind of put aside your preconceived notions, or maybe what's gut instinct to you, and be open to listening to that, because we really need sound decision making that's driven by information and data. And when you come to these decisions, that we can defend them if they're challenged, rather than I just think it's a good idea. The other thing is also not to get, caught up in groupthink or maintaining the status quo because you're just worried about rocking the boat. Collaboration and inclusion, demonstrating an open mindset, understanding that there's value to different perspectives from different backgrounds, and that a diverse inclusion will probably lead to a better decision. So I think I already spoke a little bit about getting ready for the pre-election screening interview. Review the college's website for sure about, learning what we do. And then be ready to speak about things like, why are you interested in joining the board, and what would you like to accomplish as a board member? And, sort of maybe how you can demonstrate each of those 5 core competencies or give an example. The other thing is also join in early by a couple of minutes from your time, and make sure that you do a tech check on your computer. Make sure your speaker and your camera is working properly. Because these interviews, we're typically interviewing a few people and they're all back to back. So it's important that we can get started almost right away. So as I said, be interested to speak about, why you're interested, and be ready to give some examples on how you would demonstrate those 5 core competencies. And they don't have to be all out of work. They don't have to be work-related examples. Draw from your job, your personal life, previous experience on other boards that you may have served on, clubs, hobbies, things like that. A lot of people get really stumped trying to find an example specifically out of work. So you might get a question like, tell us a time about when you collaborated with others in order to carry out a task or a project. So, be prepared to talk about how you worked with other people. So at this point here, I am actually done my formal presentation, and I'd like to engage our panelists, our fellow board members here, and go through a few questions. And at the end of that, we'll open it up to the floor. So, for instance, what interested you about getting involved at the college? Tanya, can I get you to speak to that? And then I'll get Samir to jump in.
Sure. So I actually, excuse me, I was at a CE event and our old deputy register was there, and we were just kind of at the booth and we were chatting, and she kind of pointed out to me like, oh, you should consider being an appointed member with the college. And at this time I was pretty newly licensed, and I was like, oh, I don't know. Just like you were saying, Fazal, earlier, like, I don't know if I'm really the right pick because I don't have a ton of experience. But actually what she said is this would provide me with a really unique perspective in that, I'm not someone that's been in the field working as an optician as long. So I think just actually that is what made me interested in becoming part of the college.
Yeah, that you didn't have to have years and years of experience.
No, and I didn't have any prior board work, but I think that's maybe because of all of the training we get. It was a little daunting at first, but I think with all of the training and all of the other board member support, I really felt like I could contribute pretty early on.
Excellent. Samir, can I get you to chime in?
Yeah, for sure. Fizzle, for me, there are 3 good reasons what interests me getting involved in the college. First, and very formal, is make an impact in the community. There are many ways I could have given back to the community, but to maximize my impact and support a cause whose mission is aligned with my belief for protecting community and public, and that is college. And this is the further most interested me to get into that position. Second interest was professional development, to build and enhance my professional skills and to leverage my existing expertise or branch out and learn new skills. And this is why what I like about joining colleges is developing my professional growth as well. And foremost, the very important is expanding the network. So those are the main three reasons why I interested to join college.
Thanks, Samir. And let's go to the next question. And Samir, while you're unmuted, I'll get you to keep going here. What committees have you sat on, and what have you enjoyed the most while sitting on those committees?
First of all, beside being a board member, I'm also a chairman of the ICRC committee at the college. In my opinion,
that's our complaints committee, right? The ICRC.
Yes, correct. Yes, Inquiry and Complaint Committee. In my opinion, basically, committees are essential part of the college decision-making process. What it gives me is a platform to put my expertise into the actions. What I enjoy about it is monitoring the ongoing college operations, gather and evaluate a diverse range of issue from perspective of non-professional members. As you mentioned, we have diverse group of people on our board and also on our committee. So it gives me that range of issues and their perspective to see and observe things. And that's what I enjoy being on the committee.
Thanks, Samir. Tanya, can you speak a little bit about your committee experience?
Sure. So I've sat on a few different committees. I've been on the Quality Assurance Committee, the Registration Committee, Patient Relations, and I'm currently sitting on the Executive Committee. I think my favorite experience, or maybe just because I've had the most time on it, is sitting on the Quality Assurance Committee, and I'm actually the chair of that committee right now. And I really feel like I've been able to be a part of how we've been shaping and developing the quality assurance program. And I think that these changes have been really valuable, not only to the public, but also to our registrants. I really feel like I'm making an impact and being a part of some really positive change. I've really enjoyed my time there. And also on quality assurance, I've got to be a part of the accreditation panels. And so that's really interesting because you're actually kind of getting to learn things or kind of keep up with what's current in the field while doing your committee work. So you kind of get to learn a little bit while you're also contributing back to your committee.
So your work on the accreditation panel is to look at the CE seminars, presentations, and give it an accreditation value, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Tanya, well, have you possibly unmuted? Maybe I'll get you to answer this one first. What type of training have you received and enjoyed, and how have you developed your skills on the job?
So I think I'll echo with some of the things that you're speaking about that Netta, one of our past members, kind of enjoyed. So I really have appreciated the facilitation training. I think not only just at work am I able to use the facilitation training for just making good decisions and good communication skills, but like I use it even in like my home life with my kids or with my husband. So I kind of have been able to use that across the board. And it's also really giving me more confidence, like Netta said as well, with just speaking and, being a part of a group. And then the diversity, equity, and inclusion training, I think, has been invaluable. I think this has just really not only helped me in my board work, but helped me just in my day-to-day life. I think it's just this training that has just really opened my eyes to things that I didn't realize were maybe my own unconscious biases, and just learning how to manage those.
Excellent. Samir, if I can get you to chime in on the same question.
Yeah, sure. So there are a number of great training sessions and skills that I've learned throughout my career at the college as a board member. I'm just going to share my two favorite with you guys, and hopefully they'll inspire you to take some steps towards the boardroom, basically. The first and formal one is basically you may come across as an less expected than others. But in my experience, it is one of the skills that I um, learned first, basically when I work as a board member, and that is a DEI training that developed my empathy and emotional intelligence. As I said it earlier as well, board consists of mixed different people, different background. They are from different generations, and they're in a different expert in different areas. So that is a far more standout to me. And the second one is basically a problem solving and decision making. That skills I gained through our college's appreciative inquiry and communication training. We all need to make an important decision, even more so if you work in a boardroom where there is a ripple effect of your decision will be far reaching, as Fazal had mentioned in the presentation. So those are the two far most fatal for me.
Thanks, Samir. And then, you know what, Samir, maybe I can get you to continue. Have you had any sort of benefits that you've experienced being involved on the board or the committees?
Oh, for sure, Fazal, there's no secret in serving on a board comes with an air of benefits. Beyond the personal satisfaction that comes with being able to work onto something you care about, it brings the professional gains. What I gain is insight into the key aspect of the governance and best practices in the business, including technical, tactical, and legal issues. Till today, and even every day, what I think I have a chance to grow my understanding of strategies and valuable growth based on a decision to support my practice. So those are the one for me.
Excellent. Tanya?
I think something that I've been able to benefit from is just getting to meet new people that are in our field and getting to kind of also meet our public members. So just kind of not only networking, but just getting to know different people from different backgrounds has been really interesting. And I mean, as much as we're board members, I also feel like I've made, you know, some new friends and some new kind of colleagues that I kind of have in my tool belt for not only optician things, but there's lots of diverse different people on our board, and especially our public members have very different backgrounds. And it's really a really great community of people I've been able to kind of lean on. I also just having the experience of sitting on a board and understanding how like a board meeting runs and just those kind of really basic skills. I didn't have any of those coming into this, and it's encouraging me to be able to look into other positions outside of the college, you know, to do some maybe volunteer work on a board. And I wouldn't have had those skills or understood how board work was kind of facilitated without being with the college. And then I think just in general, just learning, I got to learn so much about diversity, equity, inclusion, meetings, different people. So it, I love learning, and I love, you know, a new challenge. And this is really kind of fed into that for me personally.
Awesome. Thanks, Tanya. I think we might have one more question. Oops. Yes, we do. Okay. Samir, maybe I'll start with you on this. What did you do to prepare for elections? Like, what was involved with your campaigning?
First of foremost, I wanted to remind everyone, in order for you to run election, it is making sure your time commitment is there. So that is very, very important aspect of running an election. Also, professional impact on others, decision-making skills. You know, we can brush up those skills and learn more as we go on job. But again, how I started is basically I started my campaign with you know, calling my peers basically, and you know, informing them that I'm running an election. Please look out for me, and so on. And this is basically how I started calling my peers. And then I prepare flyers, sending out flyers, talking about who I am and why I'm interested in running an election. And basically vote for me basically. And also I did take an advantage during the time the seminars, basically an example, and AOE seminars, I basically you know, hand out the flyers there as well. I'd ask them to, you know, post my flyers on a lobby room so people can see, and if they have a question, they can come and see me and meet me in person as well. One of the other important thing in my area, District 7, is basically it's a larger area. It basically is entire Brampton, Mississauga, Kitchener, Waterloo area. So once again, as I said, time commitment. I actually spend number of hours, connecting with one-on-one with registrant to to help them understand who I am and what my role is going to be at the college. And yeah, that's what my election preparation looked like.
Excellent. Tanya, you had a bit of a different experience.
Yeah, so I actually came onto the college as an appointed member, and when I decided to run as an elected member, I actually was acclaimed. So I didn't have to run a campaign. I did have to get, my nominations and prepare and speak and everything, and to go through the interview process, but I was acclaimed in the position. I think thinking about the future, I'm just always trying to make connections with people. So like Samir was saying, I love being at the CE events in person and getting to connect with people, but also just that, there's smaller CE events I'm in District 4. So I'm like London area, and just getting to connect people in my day-to-day life. If I'm in the neighborhood of an optical, I'll just pop in and introduce myself and get to meet some other colleagues of our field.
Excellent. And just for the benefit of our audience, acclaimed means that if we don't have multiple people running, the person who's put their name forward and has been successful in going through the screening process will then be acclaimed or assume the position. So I think those are the formal questions that I had for my panel, and I'm going to stop screen sharing and look into our chat box. So at this point, we have a few minutes remaining. Do we have any questions from our audience? And feel free to type it in the chat box, or if you, I don't know if there's a raise hand feature for you that Carolyn can then unmute you. So let's see here. And then there's also the Q&A box, which I don't see anything in right now. So you're free to ask anything you'd like. Well, in the absence of questions, I'm just going to check in with our panelists to see if they want to add any closing thoughts, and then we can wrap up the session just before 1 o'clock. So Tanya, Samir, any things that you might want to throw in there or put out there as far as words of wisdom to people who are potentially looking at running?
I think I would really encourage people to try it. I know sometimes it can be intimidating, but I think putting yourself out there and getting to have this experience it's really been invaluable in my life. And also, I know we are talking about the time commitment, and that kind of seems like, oh my goodness, I don't have enough time in my life. I get it. I don't have enough time in my life, but it has been very manageable in the sense of that, with Zoom and with having these, shorter meetings is only a small portion of your day. And also when you're on a committee, we do look at and take a poll of like, when are people available? So like, if you're like, oh no, I can't every Friday, I can't do that. Or in my work schedule, I'm never available on this day and I don't want to commit to it and then not be able to show up. The great thing is we know everybody has jobs outside of their college work. So we take that into consideration when we're planning our meetings. So that's just maybe a little.
Yeah, that's kind of reassuring. I know a lot of people worry about the time commitment. Samir, any thoughts on this or other gems of knowledge?
Faisal, I was thinking hard since Tanya covered a broader topic on this. One thing I wanted to assure everybody is you are not left alone with a lot of paperwork to do it or things like that. You will have a support from respect to manager of your committee, as well as if it is a board member, your board chair, vice chair, you can reach out to them should you have any question. There are a lot of information sessions happening even the beginning of the year. You will have a proper orientation training. There are a lot of resources that you can explore on your own as well. So there are a lot of materials and things that you can definitely explore if you are, ramping up to that. And our CEO, Fazal, is actually working on a buddy type of system, basically, where if you're new to the board, he'll basically engage you with one of the board member who is well and diverse on that expert in that area, and then make sure that he gets you through that questions you have it. So Tanya, I think this is the only thing I can think of for other than what you said, but I think that's the gist of it. It's great support from the college.
Yeah, and if I could maybe chime in on an overlap of those 2 points, we also understand that life happens and things change. So we have had board members who've come to us during their term and they're like, something's happened, whether it's health or work. And sometimes we dial it back, their participation. Maybe they step off of a committee or they need to take a break, and we figure things out. So it's not the end of the world. We're all human beings with lives. And this is not your full-time gig by any means. So we will work with you to keep you involved as much as you would like to be, and be able to pivot if things come up. The other thing is also, as Samir mentioned, we have a mentor program where when we launch it, you'll be able to pick a board member who's experienced to sort of be your coach. We always welcome you to reach out to the board chair and myself and our team. But we are going to help you with buddying up with somebody who can kind of ask what's going on and things like that. And it's not going to all happen overnight. You're not going to turn into an experienced board member even after the first meeting. It's probably going to be a learning process that, some people say even at the year 3, they're still learning new things, but it's overwhelming in the beginning, possibly, but we will make sure to support you. So I think with that, it's about 1 o'clock. I don't see any questions in the chat box. Carolyn, I'm not missing anything here.
No, I don't see any questions either.
Okay, good. So, if you think of anything after the session, we'll have a recording up, but also elections@collegeofopticians.ca. Reach out on email. Carolyn will get back to you. If there's any questions that you'd like to ask me, please do reach out to me. And we hope you put your name forward for the 2 seats that are coming up, and we will see you shortly. So thanks all. Thank you to the panelists for joining us and giving us your time, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Priscilla.
Thank you.